We'll fix it in post. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by two esteemed gentlemen, Sambo and Johnny. How are we, chaps?
Good.
Muted is how I was. I'm good.
Muted responses. That's good.
Start.
That's good.
Start.
Like
that's right. It's not how we start, it's how we
it's
finish.
An appropriate response to the weekend.
I thought weekend was pretty good. Like, I know we're going to get to on the show tonight a very frustrating result in one aspect, but in many other aspects, it was quite pleasant. Johnny, Friday, you and I caught up.
Yes.
Was rather good. Went for a bike ride, watched about 4 games of footy. One of them being the Anzac Day match between Essendon and Collingwood. Then a bunch of local stuff. Ripper of a game between Bannockburn and Inverleigh. John. Exceptional.
That game was sensational. Loved it.
It was. Yes.
They lost by a
Sambo
point.
And I did some extra. They did. They lost by a point. Sambo and I did a bit of work, but it was it was fine. It was fine. Sambo and I went to the movies today. That was intense. We went and saw Warfare, which was, look, I wouldn't say rush out this Mother's Day to see it. I think that's a fair comment.
Depends on your mother.
True. It does. On the show tonight, the Cats can't catch Carlton in round 7. Went for cheap alliteration there. There's a news wrap, mainly talking about Scotty's presser, I think. And then round 8 preview. Now, the news wrap, the round 8 preview, just for Patreon subscribers. So if you want to get that part of the show, you know what to do. Go on over, start a 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. But the round 7 recap, well, that's all for you little public viewing fiends. We love you. We appreciate your clicks, your views, your subscriptions. Absolutely adore it. And all of the public show made possible by our beautiful sponsors at Cyril Cook Florist. The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase. All right, time to dive in, chaps. Not time to die, it's time to dive. The round 7 recap. Cats can't catch Carlton. And here's my recap rant. Baby, I got sick this morning. A sea was storming inside of me. Baby, I think I'm capsizing. The waves are rising and rising. And when I get that feeling, I want sexual healing. Sexual healing is good for me. Makes me feel so fine, it's such a rush. Helps to relieve the mind, and it's good for us. Sang Marvin Gaye on his 1982 adult bop, Sexual Healing. But midway through this game, Cats fans were looking for a little more than that as frustrations mounted. A straitjacket, an exorcism, a tab of MK Ultra level mind-controlling acid. There are a lot of ways to spend a Sunday, but watching Carlton get first use of the footy and execute hand passes in traffic like a pack of surgeons performing keyhole surgery in a china shop full of rampaging livestock was how we chose to spend ours. After the two teams traded goals early, it was the Blues who conjured a game-altering 7 of the next 10 majors to push their advantage out to a lead of 25 points just before the main break. However, and with this ridiculously resilient Geelong side who seem to defy all logical programming of when to surrender, there is always a however. The Cats notched the next 3 goals of the game to narrow things back under 10 points early in the third term. Carlton charged again. Goals to Curnow, Durden, White and Mackay surrounded a lone major from Jeremy Cameron, engorging the lead out to nearly 5 goals at the final change of ends. And yet, the Cats responded once again. 3 goals in the first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter to Cameron, Blixarves and Smith had Johnny jumping around his lounge room, had the margin down to just 10 points with everything to play for. Now, to the relief of Blues fans, their team managed to hold off Geelong, kicking 2 of the game's final 3 goals to triumph 14-10, 94-12 for 76. An extremely deserving victory for a team that came with a plan and executed it as close to perfection as you probably could have hoped if you're a Carlton fan. This was arguably Geelong's worst performance of the season, chaps, and yet they reflexively continued to contest and compete. Through all the dropped marks and missed handballs, butchered kicks, they persisted, despite a pair of impact-lacking performances from a couple of fairly high-paid midfielders, and despite lining up 19-year-old star Conor O'Sullivan on a pair of the game's most monstrous forwards, and lacking the mind-bending craft of Brian Myers to put the ball into attack, they persisted. Even when having to wheel the reluctant husk of Reece Stanley once more out of his crypt and into the fray against a rampaging Tom de Koning who flashed more post-goal tongue than an OnlyFans model, this Geelong team continued grinding to turn their performance around and find a result. Of course, they didn't get there this week. There's going to be plenty for us to discuss about what went wrong on Sunday and the how and why it went wrong in the first place, but it's hard not to feel, for me anyway, a mystifying sense of awe for how endlessly committed this Geelong team is to turning the cogs in pursuit of winning. It's not just in trade and free agency. It's not just cobbling together VFL project players like Sean Manor, Tom Atkins, etc. It's the on-field efforting too. And it's frustrating to lose. And Chris Scott looked as frustrated post-game as I've seen in a while. But the commitment to pursuing victory, even when it looks out of reach, rather than putting the cue in the rack, is why I will always want to spend Sundays like this, chaps. Sambo, tonight I'll come to you for your thoughts first.
Unmute myself again. Lovely intro as always, Jake. Eloquently put, whether it's celebrating a win or commiserations on a loss, it always sets the tone nicely going forwards. Yeah, I mean, you've summed it all up pretty well. It was a frustrating end to the weekend for me. You were talking about the weekends before. My weekend was all work, so this was like the cap off. That Sunday was my last shift in a long stretch of shifts. So it did put a little bit of a sour note on it to be able to like jump in the car and drive to watch the Cats and be presented with this. But you know, in the ever-present journey to be the eye of the storm when it comes to watching football, it didn't it didn't affect me too bad. Like you said, Jake, there's a lot to like. I think the Blues played really well. Like this is not me. I'm still far too one-eyed to say they're the better team this year or even in these few weeks collected together. But on the night, they were just far and away the better team. They executed at a much higher level. They probably could have won by a little bit more had they kicked straight on a couple of easier set shots. So there's a bit of steam let off there. But conversely, I think considering how poorly things did go for the Cats, I also think we still put ourselves in a position to win it. We did not, and the Blues deserved the win 100%. But I find it hard to argue with the fact that the Cats put themselves in a position to win, almost without a fault every week. No matter what part of the game we're in, how much we're down by, had a few things gone our way after we changed things up, had we had a little bit more luck, a couple or more 50-50 calls gone our way, we could have won. But on the biggest thing overall is just the execution of those fundamentals. And that's and there's some things like in Scotty's presser, he said there's things in there that are going to have to be worked on, and then there's things that'll be fixed Monday morning. You know, like there were some things that he felt were really simple, obvious things that I think were really frustrating him. But I like that he has the confidence that they're not those frustrating, simple things that you can't stamp out. He seemed to think they were fundamental, maybe decision-making things, not just execution things, but more of a, in that scenario, don't do that kind of thing. So hate losing, always hate losing, but plenty to love and enjoyed the game, enjoyed the ride.
Joint.
Yeah, it was an interesting day. Obviously, didn't end up going the way we wanted it to go, and I didn't think we actually played terribly. Like we had our chances to win that game at certain points, but there's just those very critical moments where we just didn't execute efficiently or correctly. Where Carlton, as you said in the intro, Carlton were perfect in everything they did, everything they wanted to do. They were able to pull off extremely well. They got all those players around the ball. The use by hands were exceptional. Like I haven't seen a team use a ball by hand that efficiently, that quickly in a while. It seemed like they were very much pumped up. And unfortunately, we just had one of those games where things we usually pull off extremely well and efficiently just wasn't happening. It was either just those kicks are just a little bit too high that just carried over a player's head, or just hung in the air that fraction too long, or a handball that was just not direct enough, or just one of those. Sometimes it's just a handball and the Carlton player is just able to get there first. Sometimes it's just
a bit
simple
of
as
a
that.
weak sauce handball.
Yeah, sometimes. But even when it wasn't, there would also be that time when it was a perfect handball and it was just the player just dropped it, just couldn't hold on to it, and it just seemed like they were under immense pressure. And I think it was just carried on throughout the whole game that they were a bit rushed. They had to dispose of it quickly, even when they didn't have to. So, yeah, credit to Carlton where it's due. They put us under a huge amounts of pressure, and unfortunately, we just weren't able to find a way around it. But as I said, I still didn't think it was a horrible game. We still had our moments where we could have clawed back and got a victory, but we just weren't able to execute at those crucial moments like Carlton were. And, as Prescott said in the press conference, like every team has one of those games where it just doesn't happen. And it feels like it was one of those games where we just couldn't execute. It just didn't work for us. And the other team were running on top of the ground like they had boundless amounts of energy. So I'm not too worried. And I don't think any Cats fans should be too worried about this result. It's what it is. It's early in the season. Like I said, against the Saints, we've still got heaps of time to iron this out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you chaps are hitting on an important point there about like Geelong had their moments to win. Like, I think you're doing most of what you need to do in terms of you create the opportunity to put yourself in position to win the game. As did Carlton. The difference was Carlton executed when those opportunities arrived. Geelong didn't execute as often. There was just too often where there was a missed handball, a drop mark. I mean, that was a big point I wanted to sort of really focus on to start the show, was like that, the idea of the failure to execute. Because I know a lot of people, they might look at this game and go, oh, it's the effort. The Blues were just, they were great. They got to the ball first. And we commented on that. They did get to the ball first. But that in itself is an execution of a type of skill. That's an high level of execution of winning the football. But there were other things around that, like, our failure to execute our game plan, I thought inside 50 was particularly costly. Like, we had dropped marks. There was one in particular, I think it was Cameron maybe, a ball. Now, it wasn't an ideal kick. It was low to him, but he had to go down to get it, drop the mark. And, within the next 30 to 60 seconds, Carlton was straight back up the other end and scoring a goal. And this is something that you look through all of our losses last season and this year. Often they're marked by, actually, we're about to be in position to take a shot at goal ourselves. There's a skill error. There's a lack of execution, either a wayward kick, a drop mark, or we fail to maybe defensively lock the ball inside the front part of the ground. That leads to those turnovers and away the other team goes, and we can't set up the great wall of blonde headbands. Do you chaps, does that ring true for you in terms of I know that Chris Scott talked about the impact of like a Charlie Curnow or Harry Mackay. His words got taken quite out of context by Fox Footy on their thumbnail for their video. But Curnow and Mackay had good games, but I wouldn't say that our backline had a horror game. It was more that our team defense didn't really execute very well inside forward 50. And in some ways, you could look at Brian Myers, the absence of him being sort of indicative of both parts of it. Maybe didn't use the ball going inside 50 as well as we might have in another way, and didn't lock the ball in defensively as well as we could have.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a couple of things like you guys both said. Execution at critical moments was impactful, but also just execution at non-critical moments that then led to us not having critical moments to execute. Do you know what I mean? Those simple hand passes. It's like those particular things aren't necessarily critical moments. They're moments where you're like, you should hit that every single time. Like sometimes though, and I even noted the way the ball was coming off Carlton hand passes and even punches when a Carlton player would jump up and tap it on. The power they were putting behind it was noticeably stronger. And this does affect players like Holmes, players like Smith. If they're in stride to receive a hand pass and it comes behind them and they're breaking stride, then they're not going to be able to be as effective. And I don't think that's Blues want it more, or Blues are tougher or stronger. It's a bit of a commitment thing too. It's a confidence to be committed and assured of your game plan. And we've talked about that before. When what can look like a lack of hunger or a lack of effort can be confusion. It can be coming from not knowing, should I do this now? Should I not do this now? And of course, if you then decide to execute that thing, it's never going to be executed to peak efficiency. But I was also going to point out the mark, the things like the dropped Cameron mark. So that was down on our season average marked inside 50. We had 9. Our season average is 13. But that's it's a significant drop. But it's probably not as significant as what you were talking about, Jake, with the follow up on that. The ability to go, because I feel like we haven't been clunking marks like Dangerfield, Henry, Cameron, Neil. None of them have been clunking like a lot of marks this year. But our pressure game and our ability to lock it down in their 50 has been so strong that's where we've picked up the slack. So I would say a drop from our average is 13 marks inside 50 to 9 is probably not as significant as our drop from an average of 14.6 tackles inside 50 to 4. That I think is
plus
a much bigger differential.
Plus, just marks in general. Like we're down 25 marks on our season average of 93 to 69, while Carlton got 117 and their average is 95. So as Jake said in the preview, the pre-rev up, pre-rant, they came in with a game plan, and game plan was keep it off us, and that's what we mentioned while we're watching it. To defeat the Cats, you've got to make sure they don't have the ball. And that's exactly what Carlton were able to do with their hands and with 117 marks throughout the game. So, they did the homework. Good on them. It's up to the Cats to respond now, which I think we can. I think we can respond next week. But I'll save it for later. But I think it was just one of those games that it never felt right by the Cats. We never felt like we got in that flow, as you said, Sam. Like just a bit of confusion out there of who was going where, who was meant to attack that attacker. There was that Conor O'Sullivan moment where we had a chat about where he pushed up to block Motlop while leaving Harry Mackay open on his own. It's like, well, he's sort of like caught between a rock and a hard place. Does he pressure up to stop Motlop from going for goal, or does he go and mark up Harry Mackay so he doesn't take an easy mark? And it was like, well, he's not going to be able to do both. So he did what I thought was the right decision. Like pressure up. He might have got there to spoil a mark, or he'd be there if Motlop plays on. Unfortunately, he did the smart thing, kicked it to Harry Mackay, who kicked an easy goal in the end. But it's just those moments where defence, midfield just seemed a bit very out of sync of where each other was, which rarely happens for this Cats team. And you can say it's down to a bit of inexperience, new players coming in, but also I think it's just one of those days where it just did not want to work for the Cats. Then it's going to happen. You can't play perfect football every single game.
Yeah. I think, I agree. I think that's like a great example, like you brought up as an example of what I was talking about. A great example where had he been more confident in his teammates as well as himself and the game plan, he may have been able to do what he did with more conviction, or he may have been able to trust his teammates enough to go, well, no, what happens here is this. But you could tell, and it was only a fraction of a second. So he may not have got there anyway, but you could tell there was that fraction of a second where he went, what do I do here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, I mean, he's a really young player. So that comes from being, even if everyone else was executing perfectly, he could have that moment. Like you wouldn't question that moment. I guess you question it because outside of that, he does seem so confident and so assured of himself. And it just seemed very symbolic of the general confusion around who's going where. And I'll have to watch it. I didn't quite squeeze it in before this. I was trying to watch it during the intro and it was just distracting me too much. What's the channel's name? First Use, that does the coverage that we've talked about before, has done a review of Carlton's sort of clearance work. And it looks really interesting. I'm gonna tune into it. So I'm not able to unfortunately relay it here, but I'm gonna go and watch it. So I'd recommend other people watch it because it looks like it'll give really good insights into why exactly so many of the players you want getting to the ball at a bounce were not getting to it. And the setup that Carlton had.
I think speaking of first use, like a lack of first use for the Cats, like at stoppages. Normally we talked about it. It doesn't really hurt us. Like we talked about a few things. One was we talked live about the confusion factor. We did seem to be caught in second and third minds at times about, do I pull the trigger on this kick now? Should I hand pass it to that player? Oh no, I'll double clutch it and now I'm tackled. Or like, I think we were caught in two minds and we were trying to adjust on the fly to what was happening around us. But the first use thing was something that doesn't normally impact much. And by the end of the game, the clearances were evened up. And when we talk about first use too, it's also being first to the ball off a breaking ball, off a marking contest and that sort of thing. So although I'm talking specifically about stoppages here, I think it actually applied to a broad array of moments that we talked about. Someone gets a spoil in for Geelong, and then it's two Carlton players at the drop of it. So they were very quick to react, I thought. But yeah, the stoppage stuff was interesting because normally it doesn't hurt us that much because of the way that we structure up. And it means even if they win it, and Matteo from One Percenters did a great article about this in his season preview of the Cats before the campaign began. Like Geelong set up so well defensively that even if the other team win it, most of the time a turnover is quickly coming the other way and the Cats are on the counter attack. But I thought what was impressive for Carlton was they were first to it, and then like navigated out of trouble at that first wave of pressure of Geelong is the tackling around the ball. And there's only so fast you can close a player down. And if you can execute your handball game quickly enough and effectively enough, even the very best pressure sides can't close you down. And Carlton was so good at that. So we were hurt in that first layer of defense. And then secondarily, because they moved it so quickly, I think our defensive structures further down the field were kind of a little bit exposed at times. And that was the first sort of game I've seen recently. Maybe there were shades of it in the Lions match, chaps, where I thought the clearance stuff did hurt us. What were your thoughts specifically on clearances? And I suppose this ties in a little bit in the ruck situation too. Like Tom De Koning was in a mood, and Reece Stanley, he's been valiant the last 3 weeks, but he probably needs to go back to the crypt for a recharge.
Most definitely. Tom De Koning just basically did what he needed to do. Played the ruck perfectly, got the first use. Although, looking at the hit outs, it was only 38 to 43, so it wasn't a massive difference as what I thought it would be. But I think the difference was the way Carlton were able to use it.
Jesus.
I feel like the hit out to advantage. Yeah, I was surprised as well. You got to think the hit out sort of advantage would have been more in their favour, but
it's also hard because I will let you talk on. But just the fact that we're looking at the overall stats, I'd love to see those stats 2-3 quarter time. Like,
exactly.
I feel like our stats have been padded by that fourth quarter.
Definitely. There's it's just they just seem to know where to be at the right time, those Carlton players, and also letting Cripps basically walk out of clearances without getting tackled isn't ideal either, because he was like, we tackled him and he's a strong body, but there was a few times where you just saw Cripps there standing by himself waiting for the ball with not many cats around him, so it's like, we've got to switch on there a bit more.
It does look to, just another side note, it does look to be that tactic, what was allowing that, looks to be in this video. So I'm really curious to watch that and see how they achieved it.
I reckon they must have obviously using some way of just getting Tom Atkins, Jack Bowes away from him. Like I saw a Carlton player did punch Jack Bowes, so that's how he got away easily. So he's been banned for a week, pretty sure. But it's just I think that just that ruck, as you said, Reece Stanley put in a valiant effort, but he looked pretty cooked towards the end. Did well, but it's just that first use. It's the first time in a while I've seen a team get first use and really punish us that badly for a long time. So again, I'm not too worried about it. It's something we can learn on and get better equipped, but just that, I think it's just that ruck. I feel like it was just Tom De Koning's ruck knowledge just was a bit better against Reece Stanley. He was able to use his skills better than Stanley and knew where the players were. And as we said, they came in with a plan. They obviously set up a plan for each ruck contest going, this is what's going to happen, and they executed.
I would hazard that maybe we were a little bit defensively minded. We went, they're going to come in, Cripps, blah, 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 blah. Like, we got to shut these guys down. And then in turn, they had a plan for how to shut us shutting them down. Whereby, like, some of these clips that I'm seeing without the audio from this first use of them, like, sort of sliding doors stuff, sucking Tom Atkins into going for the tackle and then making him not able to make the tackle and then freeing up the player that he's just left to make the tackle. So now they have the target that Tom Atkins was going to try to tackle, mostly Cripps, running away with it. And the player that Tom Atkins has left to get to Cripps was now, or vice versa, sorry, because I think Tom Atkins was mostly on Cripps, is now free as well. So I think that there's a kind of, there's a little bit of a, I think maybe we've got to read that better at some point and kind of go fight fire with fire and accept in that game that they were going to do that, but then make our plan A not to be to stop them, because that has been how we've recovered from this sort of hit out differential, this ruck scenario, is to make our tackling game so good and our follow up so good. And you could see that with, you were talking about first use off, outside of center bounce, Jake, the ball's coming down. You could see that it was plan A for our players to let them get the ball and then crunch them. But their plan A was not to get the ball and wheel and kick, not to get the ball and run. Their plan was to like hand pass it before they'd even they'd barely registered a possession on the stat sheet. Do you know what I mean? Like the ball was so hot out of their hands that they were sucking in sometimes two players, because our players were watching the ball come in and then like, all right, and now we'll smash him. And that has worked. That can work and will work again against certain teams. But you could just tell the intent from Carlton to not rack up long possessions. They weren't really that interested in running long distances with it or covering a lot of ground with kicks immediately until it was the right scenario. And then they pulled the trigger on, hey, now we can do a really good kick. And they would then do that. But yeah, those hot hand passes, like they were hand passing a lot out of a real intention and a game plan. It felt like anytime we were handballing, it was because we were under immense amounts of pressure. Like we didn't do a lot of nice, slick handball chains. They pushed us so wide. Like, sorry, that's a complete other topic probably, but it just came to the top of my head. Like how we barely ever saw us use the corridor. Like we barely ever went down the middle via Smith and Holmes and those guys. But back to the point on the clearance game and that, I think it was actually David King, and I sometimes agree with him, sometimes don't, but he was actually, they were talking about Oliver. Is Oliver the solution to Geelong's problems? Can they get Oliver and put at a discount rate, maybe not superstar Oliver, but Oliver that he is now at a discount rate, and put him in there to assist Holmes and Smith? And it was actually King that said he would persist with the talent they've got, with developing the young guys. And he said, can they not let Atkins off the chain? And it just felt really nice, because this is what you and I, you guys and I had been saying, going, oh, he is a good shutdown player. He's a great defensive player. But using him as a primarily shutdown player seems like such a waste, when that's like what we're lacking at the moment is a bull in the middle. And every time we bring Dangerfield back, it's a sign of desperation. It's not a sign of, oh, that's, we're on song here, so we're going to bring Danger back and really hurt him. It's like yank Dangerfield out of the forward line and hope he can just do some magic. And yeah, I kind of agree. And they even said Manor. They were like, Manor kind of seems like the kind of player that you could just go get in there and get your shoulder over it and just try and rack up some first touch, get bound up in a tackle or whatever. So I think that's related. I don't know if I've gone off on a tangent, but I think that is related to why they belted us up so much, and how we maybe could have just not belted them up, but just evened it up a bit.
Well, I'm just looking at effective disposals. In the top 10, there's 3 Cats players, but the one that's pretty incredible is the top 3 Carlton players' effective disposals. So George Hill had 29 disposals, 25 were effective. Sam Welsh had 30 disposals, 24 were effective. Patrick Cripps had, 29, and had 21 were effective. So I think, I don't know, that's, yeah,
It's big.
29. I think disposal by mass isn't probably right, but yeah, like that's a lot of effective disposals from those top 3 players, which are like I think they're like main midfield guys, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And we had Humphreys, Zach Guthrie, and Bailey Smith with the highest effective disposal. So, and they had, 16 hit outs to advantage to our 9. So, like, I think that's where it really does sit with those hit outs to advantage, and then the effective disposal use. It definitely hurt. And as you said, Sam, like there wasn't the game wasn't to get it and run away and kick it inside 50. It was get it and just handball it, and there'll be another player there to get it. And if they were going to get tackled, it was just another handball. So yeah, it was just yeah. They came with a plan. They came with a really good plan. They executed it perfectly, and they got the result.
But something that frustrates me is when you see them like the TV broadcast talked about it. Like I think Tom Atkins is trying to play a defensive role on Patrick Cripps. No, make them want to play a defensive role on Tom Atkins. Now I know he's not like as prolific a ball winner as say like a Cripps or Dangerfield type. But he is a very effective clearance winner this season. I mean, he would be up there as maybe leading the Cats this year, not only in tackles, which he's just breaking all sorts of records, but I think he's averaging, we'll get to it, over 5 clearances a game.
He had 5 clearances today.
What are we talking about? Tom Atkins, 180 centimeters, lining up on 195 centimeter Patrick Cripps. I don't know. I personally think if Jack Henry was available for selection and in the team, we might have seen Mark Blixarves go and play on Patrick Cripps like he did in 2022. Or another thing that we might have pulled, if Jack Henry was in the team, we might have sent Tom Stewart on ball this week. That was something I thought I wouldn't have minded seeing. Stewie had sort of seemed a little bit like drifty around the ground. Wouldn't have hated seeing Atkins, Manor get some help with an athlete of Tom Stewart's quality. Like in terms of his size and power, he's a different. He's more in that Cripps mold. He's big, fast, explosive, violent. Like I love the grittiness and toughness of Atkins and Manor, but they're different types of athletes to Patrick Cripps. Like he's big enough to go and play full forward. Like I just think that lacking certain players in other areas of the ground, I think the ruck is a great example of that. I think that there's a chance that if Jack Henry's back, Stanley, and this isn't to shit on Stanley, I think he's doing an incredible job to come in and try and pinch hit. I mean, he's just about the only dedicated ruck on our list who's actually healthy. But I think if Jack Henry was healthy, Sam de Koning, who they've said their goal is to get him back in the ruck, might have gone into the ruck this week, or Blixarves. But yeah, I don't think they felt comfortable doing it without Henry down there or without College Asney down there. It was like, we need to keep Blitz down there and Sam de Koning down there as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they had the 2 forwards back, and we had Conor O'Sullivan playing his 8th game. Like that's a big ask for him to play on one of them. So obviously we need STK back.
And he did some good things.
He did great things, yeah. And you want Blixarves back there as well, just to help out. So yeah, it was just tired. We had to play players there. Had to reel Roy Stanley from the crypt once again. Looks like he's just about to fall into a pile of dust any moment now. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's having a rest this week. Like, yeah, it looked tough for him towards the end of that game.
It's just
I'm probably not
on Conor
I'd love
O'Sullivan. No, you go.
Just to finish off, I suppose I'll jump in because it's still about the Ruck. I would love to maybe have the stats in front of me quarter to quarter to see how much we got belted up, but I'm maybe slightly different. Like I don't feel like Reece Stanley's. I don't think we've got a ruck on our list, healthy or not, that would have done better than Reece Stanley in that scenario. I personally feel like everything that happened after the ruck is probably a bigger issue for us than the actual rucking itself.
Sure.
I think I agree with you guys in terms of like I just don't think I mean
Sam's frozen.
I wasn't sure if it was me. I wasn't sure if it was my end.
Definitely not you. It's both around. Oh, Sam's
Okay,
in.
well, that's right. Okay. Well, while we wait for Sambo to unfreeze, I was just going to give a couple of stats, and I think the point he's making there that like that Reece Stanley, like that's not the start and end of our problems. Like there's more to it than that. I think that's a fair point. Just a couple of stray stats on Conor O'Sullivan. Led the game for intercept possessions with 12. Was second in the game for intercept marks. Was where was the other one? Spoils. He led the game for spoils. Now, he wasn't perfect. Faced 2 contested defensive one-on-ones. Lost one of those. I don't know that tells the full story of his 1v1 work or not. But the other one I was just going to say too was that he was intercept marks. Was another one I was going to show you. Anyway, point being, he was up there. Oh, clangers and turnovers. Like Conor O'Sullivan only had, I think it was one clanger, 3 turnovers, which amongst Geelong players was pretty low. Sorry, Sambo's back in the studio. But yeah, I was agreeing with the sentiment you were saying there, Sam, before you froze up.
Yeah.
Just that, like, there's more to it. Like the Stanley thing is probably, 9th, 10th, 11th on the list of problems we had, maybe lower. And it is fair to say too, even, when you said just that, I was like, okay, if all our rucks were fully healthy, even Conway, the great hope of the future, you're probably right. He probably has a really rough day against Tom de Koning as well. So I think you've probably hit the nail on the head there.
Definitely.
I don't want to begin. Oh God!
Just another stat just to tie back in, chaps, and we're going to head for our votes here. But just a couple of things I was thinking about. Well, I'll save the one for Patreon when we empty out the notebook. It's more about like some fringe players who maybe in past games have found ways to stay involved, but probably didn't do that as much this week. I've got a stat around that on a particular player, but just on those team tackling stats, Sambo, I had to have a look. So, as you said, we laid 67 tackles for the day, which was about bang on our season average, but we only had 4 tackles inside 50, which was down on 14.6. To quantify that as a percentage, only 5.9% of our tackles on Sunday were inside 50. Normally, our season average, 21% of our tackles are laid inside 50. So that's a massive, massive drop. And I think is a huge reason why we didn't get the win on the weekend is we were unable, on top of everything else, to lock the ball in and pressure them in their back 50. Huge difference. Let's get into votes for players who stood out to us and did other stuff good too, as we've eloquently called it. I'm going to quick fire mine off, and then you guys quick fire yours. We'll have a discussion about the whys and wherefores. I ended up giving 1 vote to Bailey Smith, which might be a shock. I wasn't too happy. I have a love-hate relationship with Bailey Smith at the moment for the Cats. But when I thought about his, anyway, I'll get into the reasons why later. 1 vote to Bailey Smith. I went 2 votes to Sean Manor, and I went 3 votes to Tom Atkins for like the umpteenth week in a row. Johnny, where did you go?
I went 1 to Conor O'Sullivan. I gave 2 to Bailey Smith, and I've given my 3 to Tom Atkins.
I went 1 to Jeremy Cameron, 2 to Sean Manor, and 3 to Tom Atkins.
All right, so we can pump up Tom Atkins' tires in a minute. I'm really glad, first off, Sambo, that you gave Jeremy Cameron votes because he was like right around my group. I'll just say but I want to start with Bailey Smith because he's just he's in me and Johnny's votes. For me, Bailey Smith, there's some stuff about his game that's really disappointing me. And then there's some stuff that I kind of look back in retrospect and go, I'm glad he's in the team. He does win a lot of ball. I think personally we're seeing why he never got put on ball at the Dogs, because I don't think he's as good an on-baller as Bontempelli, Liberatore, Treloar, McRae, take your pick. I think he does his better work in space. And again, it was like 2/3 of his touches were uncontested. There's still issues, but he did lay 9 tackles. He did kick a really nice goal at a crucial time. That was under pressure. I just thought when I cast the net over the full group of players looking for that one vote, I end up leaning Bailey Smith. Johnny, what did you think of his game?
I think it's another one of those games that that's what we need him to play. As you said, he's not an on-baller. I don't think we got him to be that on-baller. We got him to be that outside runner with Max Holmes. And when he does it, he's really good. He's really exceptional at that. And again, he's got his disposal efficiency up above the 50%, which was what we've been wanting. He's getting, as you said, Jake, lots of the ball. He's getting nice goals. And I think, as I said, his ball use is getting better. And I've felt just over the few weeks, I've been feeling more comfortable with him getting the ball inside 50 off his boot, because you can start seeing that he's getting those eyes lowered and kicking into the path of our forwards. Just they're not marking it at the moment, but just each week you can see him getting better and better on that outside run. And yeah, I'll give him some votes this week. I just really enjoyed it. Like 9 tackles is really good, a couple of clearances, not as many as some other players. 749 meters gained, which was the highest on the team. So yeah, I just thought it was a good game. Not what we got, not at his best yet, but I thought it was just good enough to get the 2 votes for me. Yeah, just a nice, clean-ish game. Like as you said, there's still errors he's making, but on the night, everyone made lots of errors in this game, so it's hard to judge each player on that. But yeah, I just thought it was another really solid game by him for the fourth week in a row.
It's actually kind of insane. I was just looking at his stats. Like he's actually averaging a career high in contested possessions this season.
Nice.
Like he's never averaged double-digit contested possessions in his career, and he's averaging 11. Maybe it's just because I feel it's his career high in tackles. He's averaging career high in clearances. He's averaging career high in disposals. Like maybe I've just got a different idea about what I was hoping or thinking he might do. I don't know, Sambo, do you have thoughts on this? I know it's not in your votes, but maybe why wasn't he in your votes?
Well, what do
you think?
I think it lends itself really well to this what we're talking about in terms of what he brings, what we expect him to bring, and how well he's executing either of those things. So I would say that I guess I disagree mildly in terms of, in my mind, maybe not in the Cats' minds, because I have no idea. I did have him coming into the team as an on-baller. I didn't have him coming in as Max Holmes too. I had him hopefully coming in as more of Patrick Dangerfield, not quite, but like a little bit, like bringing a bit more of that, like shoulder over it onto the ground, shovel it out kind of thing. And what he's doing at the moment is still a bit of that, like you said, Jake. He's still got some contested possessions in that. But it's more. He seems to be operating way more in space. He seems to be way more Max Holmes 2.0 than than anything else. He's slightly stronger, and slightly but not as fast. So but he seems to be playing more of that role. So if I have to look at him in that role, then he is vote worthy. Do you know, if that's what I'm expecting from him, then yes, actually, he probably should have got votes from me as well. Like I think he's so this is to do with the expectation and where the lens I'm viewing him through. Because I think if we want him as an on-ball, strong, tough nut, getting the ball, ripping out and getting clearances, I think he's not vote worthy in that way. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not disagreeing with the reasons why he's gotten votes from you guys.
No.
But I'm saying
Yeah.
what I am looking for from him to get votes. As we always say, it's not comparing one player to another player to are they better. It's that player, how close to an ideal performance of their kind of game are we getting? And so maybe I will need to start adjusting my expectations. Not in a good to bad way, but just in a adjacent way. I'm not saying I need to expect him to be worse. I need to expect him to be good in a different way to what I was kind of hoping. Because of, like you said, he's averaging career best in a lot of those areas, but that's because the Dogs weren't letting him play that in that way because of, as you said, he wasn't necessarily performing. But so his hunger to be that player, because that's the player he wanted to be. I kind of was hoping he'd really take this and like the disposal efficiency becomes way less important to me if all like 90% of his disposals are contested and they're, he's the one in there. So it's hard to know what lens to view him through because we don't 100% know what Chris Scott and the coaching staff are saying go and do. So we can only look at what we're seeing. So I guess that's why I was super excited about him coming on, and the reason he didn't get votes is largely the clearance numbers. I would love him to have more clearances, but maybe that's not what he's there for.
I think this is where my pessimism of him coming into the side has helped me out. Going, I'm not sure he's going to be that player to really get us that next grand final. As I think that excitement that you had, I definitely didn't have. So I think that's helped me get adjusted to the way he's playing a bit easier, knowing that he's not here to be that next Dangerfield. He's here to be that outside player alongside Max Holmes. So maybe my pessimism on him has given me the different way to look at him a bit quicker than what you were hoping for, Sam. So, but
but I'm gonna hold on to the fact that he's poorly, or
absolutely.
he's not getting himself in there. But you might be right. I mean, I probably need to be a fly on the wall to know what they thought bringing him in.
That'll be good. But
so just to keep our conversation moving, I think it'll be an evolving conversation around Bailey Smith on this podcast, because it wouldn't surprise me if the way, particularly I would say Sam and I think of him, is quite at odds with how other people in the viewership are evaluating his performances. I'm sure there are a lot of people going out there like, why the fuck do you guys never give Bailey Smith votes? Equally, why did you not give Max Holmes votes? It's all to do, I suppose, with just how you perceive what sort of impact you're expecting from certain players. And I've already had to change my perspective on one player this season. That was Dangerfield. First few weeks, I was really disappointed in Danger. And then I had to realize, no, he is playing as a forward now. I can't judge him anymore against clearance numbers and contested possession and disposal. It's Danger's still capable of doing 6 things a game that are massive, but he's probably going to do maybe he's going to get 15 moments to get those 6 things instead of 30 moments to do those 6 things. It's a smaller volume of things. So I've already had to change my perspective there. And look, Bailey Smith might be another one. And he did sneak into my votes this week. Sambo, Jezza Cameron was in your votes. Why him over other players?
Well, because we're talking about, again, the ideal performance from that player. So I don't think he was 3 votes Jeremy Cameron, but I think this was 1 vote Jeremy Cameron. So what did he kick? 4 goals 2? Could have been 7 goals.
And had a goal assist.
Drop him back to the VFL. Which one of us said that on the bloody map? Fool!
It's a roller coaster here with Sean Manor, Jeremy Cameron getting dropped to the VFL, Smith dominating the stats sheet and me not giving him votes. What do we know? But Jeremy, I mean, and he had 9 score involvements, I think.
1 goal assist.
And 1 goal assist, and he kicked 2 behinds, and at least 1 more, if not 2 more shots that were marked or didn't make the distance. So he could have very easily had 6. Like, I think people are so used to Jeremy Cameron up and about kicking 5 or 6 and like kicking freak goals, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But in a game like this where we're on the ropes, like for your forward to get the stats that he had and kick 4 goals, like I have no complaints. Like I think his form has certainly, like, people are well and truly justified in questioning like his output at various stages this year. But I mean, he had 14 disposals, and not even just in the forward line either. He was still roaming and coming back a couple of times and doing some crucial stuff around the ground too. So I just feel like people have maybe been a little harsh on him. 8 marks, like 2 tackles as well, and like I distinctly remember one of them being terrific, like a really good tackle. It's probably one of our 4. Actually, I wonder if both of his were. If he had 2 of our 4 tackles inside 50. 417 meters gained as well. I don't want to waffle on about the stats any more than that, but yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was, if everything else works on the field around him, that's called a match-winning performance, because he kicked 4 goals and everyone else kicked 1 and 2 and like it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough to get us over the line, but I don't think that's because he didn't kick 6.
Yeah. 17 goals in 7 matches, and it's now 10 in his last 3. So he's averaging over
bad.
3 goals a game in his last 3 matches. No, definitely. I'm going to just...
He was the just quickly,
Johnny,
he was the only
there you
player
go.
to get multiple contested marks on our team. Now it was only it was only 2, but still, he's the only player in the squad to get more than 1 contested mark.
Johnny,
Yeah,
give me 30 seconds on why Conor O'Sullivan got your 1 vote.
Just thought his game was really exceptional. Like coming into his 8th game, coming up against Harry Mackay or Charlie Curnow. I think it was on Curnow for most of the night. Just his reading of the ball, his attack, his intent. He never dropped his head. He never looked like he was giving up. He was always in the fight, always giving it his all. So just really impressive and bright star for the future for the Cats. Like if he's going to be like that in his 8th game, he's going to be like that for his entire career. He's only going to get better, and he's already pretty good. So, yeah, I just thought, well, what we expect from Conor O'Sullivan, I think we're getting over what most other defenders his age would be doing at this time of year and this time of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that. Interested to see how he takes on the rest of the season. There was a distinct fade from him last year in the VFL season, like across the whole year. It was like, it felt like, from an outside observation, it looked like a big year of footy for Conor O'Sullivan, playing at a higher level than he'd ever played before. I wonder how the body and just the fitness and all that sort of thing will hold up over the course of a full AFL season. He's certainly put himself right in the frame to maintain selection moving forward. I'm just going to give you a chunk of thoughts on Atkins and Manor that I'd pre-prepared stats-wise, and then you chaps can tell me why they were in your votes. Sean Manor wasn't in John's votes, but Atkins was, and maybe I'll go to John for Atkins thoughts, Sam for Manor thoughts, or something after this. So basically, Tom Atkins, Sean Manor, the heroes we need. 2 graduates of the Cats VFL program, continued to stand up even when punching above their weight against players that have been taken much higher than them in drafts, etc. On the weekend, they combined for 44 disposals, 23 contested possessions, 12 clearances, 58 pressure acts, 25 tackles. So, what's that? Nearly a third of our total team tackles between the 2 of those. 2 goal assists. More than a third, in fact, of our total team tackles. 2 goal assists. Manor on the season averages 18.5 disposals, 6.7 tackles, 4.5 clearances, 1 goal and 1 goal assist per game. Atkins averaging 18 touches, 10.8 tackles, and 5.2 clearances. Johnny, your Atkins thoughts. Sambo, your Manor thoughts.
Tom Atkins just continues to be Tommy Atkins, that leader in the midfield, and I'm not saying new Dangerfield, but he's his own player that just continues to step up each and every week. You never see him falter from a contest or be afraid of putting his body on the line. Even when players are outrunning him, he'll still putting in almighty effort to chase and get another tackle. And like his clearance work, his grunt work, his just work to be first to the ball is outstanding, or to lay a big tackle is outstanding. And the last 7 weeks, he's been doing the same thing, game in, game out, and he's finally starting to get some appreciation from an AFL media world. So it's about damn time. He's an excellent player, and it's hard to go past him for the 3 votes at the moment each week. He's just so consistent.
He certainly is a player who stood out for us and did other stuff good too. Sambo, your thoughts on Sean Manor?
He stood out to me and did other stuff good too. Yeah, Sean Manor is just a really interesting one, because I think, again, if you're going to consult the stat sheet and even eyeball the game, like, I can certainly see a world where people would go, how the hell did he make it into your votes? Like, do you remember that thing he did? Do you remember the free kick he gave away? Do you remember that time where he, missed that kick? Or, oh my God, his disposal efficiency is down. Like, there's all these reasons not to. But again, looking at this through the lens of what we want from particular players, I think Sean Manor is operating it at almost peak performance for what we want from him. He's not going to displace Bailey Smith from the team. He's not going to displace anybody else from the team. But for what we're after him to bring, in my opinion, I think he's like John said of O'Sullivan, he's overachieving at the moment, and we need him to stay there. Team high for contested possession. Contested possessions in a game where our contested work was pretty low, I thought. 5 score involvements. Team high inside 50s. Low disposal efficiency, but when the majority of your possessions are under pressure. And he's just different to Atkins, but similar in terms of he's just an efforting player. Like, it just, even when he cocks up, he gives away a 50-meter penalty here, or he, blazes for goal when maybe he should have passed it off, as he was known to do. Like, he just doesn't slump the shoulders. Like, I just feel like he goes and goes and goes and tries his absolute guts out. And that's probably the main quality that I'm looking for in my votes at the moment. But on top of that, I think he's operating at a pretty high level in terms of how he's affecting and impacting the game.
Yeah, team high, 2 tackles inside 50. 2. So that's
he got 50% of our tackles inside 50.
That is all from us here on the public show. Ended up doing an hour. Surprise, surprise. We're going to go now over to Patreon. So if you want to get the rest of the show, including any final thoughts we have on this game, some thoughts from Sambo and Scotty's presser, and then we're going to launch into some preview thoughts on Cats v Pies. Go on over, start your 7-day free trial on the Hoops Group Patreon. But until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday night. Make sure you keep it locked here on the Hoops Crew Media Network. Check out all the awesome stuff from Ben, from Paul. Get into it. All right, until next time, go Cats!
Go Cats!
Go Cats!